Finally, the moment a couple of you have been waiting for.
It's all like bing bong, Jack.
Coming to you from an undisclosed location in Duval and St. Johns County. The show for Jag fans by Jag fans.
You can't have a newcomer come in and steal the show.
Here are your hosts, Franklin and Michael how you say it? DeZoba. Welcome to the Jaggernaut Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, kids of all ages, guess who's back? Back again. It's the Brothers Grimm. We're coming back to you from the Jaggernaut Podcast studios. I don't even know. Do we have studios? More like our in-house offices, but that we're gonna call it studios. Yeah, we're gonna call it studios. I got a little desk. My wife has a huge desk, but that's not really the way it goes. Anyway, we're back. So we're gonna do a podcast. Hopefully, try to keep it to somewhere around 30 minutes or so. When we discuss, I want to say all things Jaguars, but it's sort of that draft season is really what it is. And so that's what we're going to talk about. The draft is the 28th for first round, the 29th for the second and the third round, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th happens on the 30th.
This is our time. This is the draft season. This is when the Jaguars have hope.
Yes, this is hope. Oh, trust me, there's going to be a lot of hope after the draft. We're going to go through, we're going to look at all these guys. We're going to look at film, their YouTube highlights, and we're going to say what we like, what we don't like about them. So we thought this time we'll go ahead and we'll just cover some of the potential picks that we may have in the first, what we're looking at in the 33rd pick, and just go from there, share our insight if we really have any, maybe start some good conversations. If you guys want to, drop us a comment. We'll talk back. So, all right, with that, Frank, you, sir, are Trent Baalke. You actually look a little bit like Trent Baalke if he had facial hair.
No.
Yes.
I look far more like Gus Bradley.
Oh, I don't know. I'd claim Gus, but I guess anybody's better than anybody's better than Doug Marrone. Like everybody's better than Doug Marrone or Gene Smith at this point.
Hey, I didn't say, hey, if you're getting compared in any way, just anyone from the Jaguars organization is probably not a good thing. So,
well, unless you're Con. At Con, you don't really care because then you're rich. From a football standpoint, you're upset. But from any other standpoint, it's like, I got money. What do I care? All right, Frank, you are on the clock. Who are you turning in your pick for?
Boy, I can go two ways. I could see myself, and I think this will sort of get us into what I think the most likely two options are going to be, or at least position-wise. And you can tell me if I'm wrong on this, but essentially, and I think most people see it this way as well, we are either going to go offensive tackle or we are going to go defensive end. And most people have us going defensive end. For me, I might go offensive tackle. I think Trevor Lawrence is everything to us right now, and sure, defensive end could help Trevor by getting the ball back, getting the defense off the field, giving them the ball more often. I see that aspect of it. But yeah, and yes, Cam Robinson did sign his tender, so he is back officially. So the franchise tag is there. So, but I don't have a problem at all. I'd probably go Evan Neal right now. If I had to, if you're going to pin me down, I think I'd go Evan Neal right now, just because I feel like I could take that guy, I could put him anywhere on the line other than center. And I feel pretty good about that. I wouldn't mind him maybe between, I just like the idea of I like Walker last year, his potential.
Who we got in the third round.
Yeah, but I like the idea that Cam, and we don't know the typically if you're on your second franchise tag, you're not back the next year. That's usually the way it works.
Fair point.
So this year, we fortify the line and we have a scenario where we can
Let Cam
acclimate the
go.
guys,
Yep.
figure out what they're good at. Walker could end up being your right tackle. Neal could end up being your left, or vice versa. One could play the guard right now. And we could replace both guards right now, honestly, or because I'm thinking his name's escaped Jawan Taylor.
Jawan Taylor. He's
Jawan
he's
Taylor,
all right
I
tackle.
could see a scenario. Here's a scenario I could see. Bring in Neal. He can be in the mix. I could see Jawan Taylor coming in and being guard, putting Walker on the right, putting Neal on the right, putting Cam on the left. That's the way I see it right now. I could very easily be talked into Aiden Hutchinson, so I'm not. I'm weighing them both out. If I'm
All right, quick question. If you choose defensive end with your first overall pick, does that have any bearing on where you go with your 33rd pick? Case in point. Now, this is just hypothetical. Would you be okay with us taking Neal, number 1 overall, and coming back on the third or at 33rd in the second round and getting the defensive end from Penn State?
What's that guy's name?
His name escapes me. I knew you were going to ask that.
Is it a Greek name?
I think it sounds. I want to say like a Rakbo or something, and it's not. I'm way off.
Yeah.
But I mean,
yeah.
Early on when I was doing mock drafts, that I want to say, was it Jeremiah Johnson, the guy from Florida State?
Yeah, Florida State.
Yeah, he was off in there at 33. So I was fine taking a tackle, knowing that I could get a defensive end of decent quality at 33. The guy from Penn State may not be that bad. I'm not saying that's what you do, but he may not be that bad. Overall, I think you have to look at the way the draft is going to shake out. Here's what I know. I don't think you get a quality starting tackle beyond the 3rd round.
Yeah.
I think you can find maybe a potential defensive end. I know you can find wide receivers. And I know everybody's like wide receiver. And I agree. We need weapons. We need that number 1 guy. But it's shown, the NFL has shown us over the last 5 years that the number 1 guy consistently comes out of the 2nd round, consistently comes out of the 3rd round. Right. So what we need to focus on is where the draft is short in that 2nd and 3rd, because we have 2 3rd round picks. So it's where's it short there? If it's short on tackles, maybe we grab a tackle, then we grab a defensive end, the guy out of the Penn State guy, and then we come back in the 3rd, at the beginning of the 3rd, and then we grab our guy. Or maybe we trade a 3rd, a 6th, and maybe a 7th next year to move back up into the 2nd in the late rounds of the 2nd, or late picks of the 2nd, and grab the receiver that you like if you don't think he's going to make it there.
Yeah, and that's part of my reasoning for Neal slightly being ahead of Hutchinson. And that kind of gives you an idea about how I look at the tackles and how I look at the ends. And we can discuss that breakdown too. But my preference would be, if I'm balky, now you asked me who I would pick, and that's why I answered it the way I did. But what I would really be trying to do, and I know this is cliche, but it's to trade down. And right now, my understanding is Detroit is fielding, there's communication going on. I don't understand why they can have conversations and we can't have conversations. You get whoever you want in this draft. That tells me we're asking for too much. Everybody knows what this draft is. It isn't a draft where you know who the clear number 1 is. You just don't know that. This draft is a draft of depth. And in that case, if you have somebody who's fallen in love with somebody, I feel like you make that move and draw back a little bit. There's three. So in regards to your point, there are three. What I would, if I'm going to go on offensive line, I don't mind Iquanu. I don't mind Cross. I'll take any of those three. The gap between those three isn't that big. The gap below them is substantially larger. So my point is this: it doesn't matter whether you take Neal or the other two guys. If we can drop down some and gain some more ammo to move around, if I'm, you saw Philly and New Orleans make that deal. I don't understand that deal from both sides, and I don't want to get into it on because this is a Jaguars focused show. But if you want
Dude,
to
I
briefly say
understand
you
it.
can.
I understand it from Philly side. New
All right,
Orleans, you
explain
got
that
robbed.
then.
You got robbed.
Oh, Philly got robbed?
No, New Orleans got robbed. They gave up picks in this draft, picks in next year's draft to move up like 3 spots. For what?
Yeah, I didn't. They were saying it made sense from both sides. I didn't.
No.
I've heard people
Hell
talk about
no.
it briefly. I didn't understand any of it.
No,
It didn't make sense to
no.
me. I don't know what New Orleans is
And-
thinking. I don't know what they're looking at.
Philly moved back 3 spots and picked up what? 2 number 2s, a number 5, and like a number 6.
Yeah. Well, and that has to mean that they are, in my mind, that means, as an example of where I'm heading with my point, that means the Saints are
targeting somebody.
And maybe they want to continue to move.
That's correct. Yeah, because they now have 2 first-round draft picks, so they can package those 2 first-round draft picks to move higher, possibly in the 9 or 10 range if there's somebody there that they're looking at. Normally, I would say it's a quarterback. Like, it's got to be a quarterback because that's the only people you trade up for, But it may not be. It could very well be a receiver.
This is the type of draft where it makes it strange because that quarterback doesn't appear to be there unless they see something other people, usually don't see or typically aren't seeing. But the point is between Detroit having some conversation, and we already saw that other trade. You can make a trade if you want. Like, you have to have a partner, obviously, but I would try to get down a little bit because the reason is this. The other thing I would like to try to do is if I could get some capital, what I would really like to try to do is speak to Cincinnati and try to see how much T. Higgins would be, because Jamar Chase gets a ton of looks from Burrow. And if we could get his guy from college, maybe we can replicate that same thing, because as soon as Chase came in, you're not going to tell me that their LSU connection isn't a big reason of why Burrow's looking Chase's direction. So my thought is, this is a wide receiver draft. I get that. We can get a seasoned. We don't have to wait. We got a wide receiver's been in the league now. Somebody our guys used to and trusts. To me, that's value for us. And so in other words, think of the wide receivers in this draft, and most people have us trying to get a wide receiver at 33, or a lot of people do. That appears to be need and value where it kind of meets up. I get it. Wouldn't be upset about it. But I think I'd take T. Higgins over any wide receiver that dropped to us just because of that connection. So my point is that just as an example, would Cincinnati be willing to we'll give you our 33 pick, you give us T. Higgins. I don't know that they would be willing to do that. I'm thinking the cost would be a little higher. So my point is if we could drop down, get a little more capital, get a little bit more flexibility, it allows us to maybe come away with some of the guys you're talking about, because this draft is not a draft where you got superstars anywhere. But that being a point, you can I'll hand it back over to you if you want to go somewhere different. But my thought process now is, let's talk about defensive ends. And because I saw a couple mocks where it seemed like they were going defensive end, 1, 2, and 3, which, and a lot of times we're penciled in with Aiden Hutchinson. I guess the question I've got for you is, if we drafted Aiden Hutchinson, How do you feel about that? How do you feel about the other defensive ends?
So honestly, I sort of feel about it the same way I feel about the tackles. I think there are two. Then I think you get to the, what's his name? Walker.
Trayvon Walker, yeah.
Trayvon Walker. I think he's right behind Thibodeau and Aiden Hutchinson. And the only reason I say that is because it worries me when the talking heads, and I know they're talking heads, but when the talking heads say, well, now you have to project this guy to be good because he wasn't good the way Georgia used him. They say it's scheme. Okay, here's the deal. If you watched any of our podcasts, you know for a fact that I'm not a Gator hater, but I am adamant we should never draft from the University of Florida. And the reason why is because Florida does a very poor job in teaching fundamentals and how to play the position. And most of the time they win because they have the better athletes. In the NFL, you're not the better athlete. Shouldn't he have won being the better athlete? But he didn't. So it's like they're trying to say he didn't have production because of the system. Dude, you're a defensive end, right? You rush the quarterback when you know it's a running down or a running situation. You play run a little more. However, there are times you're pinning your ears back. You're playing for Georgia. So you should have 12, 13, 14 sacks, like killing it. The whole defense was banging. So It's like, do you take an average guy on a really good defense who may be Aldon Smith? I don't know. That's a great comparison. If I'm him, I'm like, don't compare me to that dude. Like, don't do it. You know, I ain't got nothing against him, but don't compare me to that guy. So to me, at number one, that puts him out of the conversation.
No, it's no question. I completely agree.
So that's back to Adrian Hutchinson or Thibodeau. And I would not be upset either one of those. But at this point, I initially was a Thibodeau guy, and I'm like, give me Thibodeau. I thought just his athleticism. But man, there's something to be said for that guy's motor, Adrian Hutchinson. And it's like he's athletic enough. But he has the motor. And if you keep coming, you will get there. At some point, you will get there.
Yeah.
So I'm okay. Give me Adrian Hutchinson. Aiden, sorry.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's not a Tavion. Tavon.
Well, here's how I come down on that. I completely agree with you with Trayvon Walker. It scares the crap out of me that there may be some smoke and fire to that. I could totally, because they're going, well, Balky, like, and you're brought up Aldon Smith, and oh my gosh, if he takes Trayvon Walker number one overall, then all it does is put a Statue of Liberty size exclamation point behind Fire Balky for me. Because here's the deal. You don't take a project number one overall. You don't do that. I don't care how, for all the things you just said there, I don't care how good his measurables are. And let me say this. That's overrated in this respect. He's not that much more athletic than Aiden Hutchinson. He's not. He doesn't have he did a better broad jump and he ran faster on a 40. The other things Hutchinson's better at.
Well, let me ask you a question. So if you're Balky and you're thinking about drafting this guy number one, would you not think of that Christian Walker dude out of Montana? Is it Montana or is it North Dakota?
Oh, you're talking about the receiver?
Yeah, the receiver. Have you not seen him?
Oh, you mean as a pattern? So then therefore we may end up getting Walker too?
No,
you know,
like draft him number one overall. He's got the size, he's got the speed,
yeah.
He's got the measurables. You can project him.
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
Randy Moss clone, or
if you're going stupid, just go stupid all the way.
If you're gonna go stupid, just go stupid. So anyway, it's Aiden Hutchinson. When I was doing mocks, now I only did a few mocks, and granted, I don't know a lot once we get past the top 5. There is not a lot of value in the offensive line there. There's not a lot of value. There's some defensive tackles. If you want some big defensive tackles, there may be a defensive tackle there. So we may end up going defense. However, one of those 3, Jahan Dotson, that dude from North Dakota State we just talked about, and Pickens out of Georgia. One of those 3 in every single draft that I did, and I did like 12 drafts, one of those 3 was there in the second round.
Yeah.
I'm not as big on Jahan Dotson. I liked him at first, but then I looked at his size, and I don't think he's a slot guy. Like, we got slot guys.
Yep.
So I'm not big on him. If the receivers are gone, go D tackle, go with the biggest bang for your buck. Wherever the value is, go and get that. Even if it's tight end, if that's where the value is, go get it. And then keep pushing back to the value meets the position.
And look back on Trayvon Walker. This to me emphasizes my original point, because let's just say there's a legitimate reason that, everything they said, maybe there's some reason at Georgia, he's just this diamond in the rough that for some reason, one of the best college teams in the world, what the heck, they won the championship, didn't they?
That's correct.
They couldn't figure out how to use them. I don't know, fine. We've seen it before though, to their, point. We've seen guys who didn't do anything in college get in the pros and they do great. So it could be that guy. But here's the deal. If let's say you're bulky and you've done, let's say your scouts, forget bulky for a minute. Let's say your scouts are unanimous on this. Like they're like Trayvon Walker. He's going to be Lawrence Taylor. He's like this, whatever, just throw it crazy. And you go, okay, you may draft him number 1. Let's just say he in regards to everything being said, like Aiden Hutchinson isn't as great as we think he is comparatively.
Okay.
Well, here's what that means to me. Trade out. You don't draft number 1 overall. So you have to get out of that position because then, hold on. Or you go offensive lineman, because if there's such a difference in value, because if Aiden Hutchinson isn't, to me, it's clear. You don't draft a project. No way in the world do you draft a project number 1 overall. You can justify it a few slots down, maybe if you're talking about a premier position and you trust your scouts. This guy's did nothing in college. I mean, one of those drawbacks on Hutchinson is he did it for 1 year, right?
That's correct.
Okay. This guy did it for 0 years. 0.
Look,
So it's like,
so you're so far you're preaching to the choir, but I will tell you this: if your scouts come back and say this dude's the missing link, like he's Lawrence Taylor, he's Reggie White.
I messed up when I said that. I realized
if they come back and they say that, I'm not trading out at all. I'm gonna pull what the NFL probably should have done several times, and I'm drafting Tom Brady in the first round, number 1 overall. I'm grabbing the dude that my guys say, this is it. This is the Messiah. Grab him. I'm gonna take him, even if Mel Kiper says no, because Mel Kiper's never right. Even if
never right.
Well, that's true too. But even if Daniel Jeremiah doesn't like it, I don't care. I'm grabbing who my scouts tell me what my data says.
It's not as big of a reach now. It's not as big of a reach now because everybody's talking about it. So now you have your cover. So if you needed that PR to make the pick, then you got the cover, because that you can justify. You can say everybody knows this guy's athletic potential is
That's correct.
blah, blah, blah. But again, the point is that's overblown. Look at the stats, look at the combine. There is no great athletic difference between these two guys. You can say this guy's better at this and that guy's better at that. So
Okay, so we're
no
both,
huge,
but we're both in agreement. If we stay at number one and we're forced to pick, if it's defensive end, it's Aiden Hutchinson.
yeah.
Okay,
No question.
and I'm okay with going Neal. I think Neal is going to be the better left tackle.
And
So
let me
if
say
they
this
went-
too.
If
Let
they
me say
went
this
that-
too. I get tired of this floor ceiling conversation. Like, I get it. It's a great illustration to get people to understand value, prospective value, but it's not this. What's coming along with this is this idea, like they go, well, we realize that Hutchinson's floor is way higher than Trayvon Walker's, but Trayvon's ceiling is so much. No, I don't know that.
In fact, nobody
I don't know
knows
that.
Yeah,
The
nobody knows
floor we know.
that.
That's actually something we know more of. This stuff about ceilings, it's like, that's pie in the sky nonsense. Like, yeah, okay, we've seen it before. I get it. But again, you're basing it on some combine stuff. And what I'm saying is that the combine doesn't differentiate these two guys that greatly. All it did was put him in the same league at the combine with a guy who was already considered an amazing defensive end prospect. Now you're forcing this guy in. So anyway, I'm bragging. I'm on that because it talks about the general concept of the draft and what may be a misunderstanding or misvalue, and how it gets a little weird and wonky, and it's something to look out for, because if we do draft this guy number one overall, we're going to see if this works out the way people say. And if this guy comes out and is a bust, we're going to go,
He could be Dante Fowler Jr.
Dude. And here's the other thing. I'm glad you brought that guy up.
Wait, Harvey? Harvey's even better, right? From the University of Florida. Again, why we do not draft from the University of Florida.
And so we spent time with Hutchinson, a lot of time with Hutchinson and Walker. Kayvon Thibodeau, you like him more than I do. Here's the thing I've got about, I know people are saying it's not as big of a deal, the stuff. Look, it is a big deal. You listen to the guy talk, he ain't got the time of day for the process. Maybe that's great. Maybe that means he's all ball, all business on the field and doesn't care for all the other stuff. But what bothers me is this: you make a guy, we've seen guys like this time and time again in the league where they're bigger than the league. You bring that dude in and you make him the number one overall draft pick because you go, oh, he's clearly the best pure pass rusher that there is. And I do agree that appears to be the case. He's better than Hutchinson, but he's not better in other things. But let's say that's what you need. We got to affect the quarterback. It does appear he's the better effector of the quarterback. I don't trust the guy. And you make him the number one overall pick, you're just feeding that ego. And on the Jaguars too. This isn't the Patriots. Okay. This isn't the system where everything's locked and loaded and you can guide somebody's personality and you can bring a diva on board and you can kind of.
But that also gets back to the Walker pick, because we can't develop anybody. Name a guy we've developed. Name a guy that we've drafted and we've developed. I mean, I can't think of one. I can't think of one.
No, and here's the thing. Let's not get into this because we know we've sucked. We've sucked in almost every capacity, and we have to at some point. And my point wasn't to say, my point wasn't to say that the past will be our future again. My point, because we do that enough. It's like, fine, we're the Jaguars. But at some point, we might be the Bengals. You know, we don't know that next year's not our year to become a legitimately decent football team. I just think that if you bring a guy on board, you have to have a guy that's on board. You can't be worried about whether he's a me guy. And if that is a problem, and I don't know, maybe the scouts say it's not with Thibodeau, but it appears to be that. If you go to a job interview and you can't figure out that the job interview is where you put your best face on, if you don't have time for that, like everybody else is doing, I got a problem with that. So that's a big red flag for me on him. And who he reminds me of is Dante Fowler. That's who he reminds me of. I don't want that type of guy anymore on this team, especially not at number one. I mean, you do take shots on those guys because sometimes it is just they're confident dudes. It comes off a little weird. So I get that, but not at number one overall, especially when you're splitting hairs here. You go with the guy. And anyway, we probably spent more time than I imagined doing on the defensive end, especially when I said, well, I'd go off offensive line. But for the reasons I talked about, I just don't know.
All right. So Frank, first round's over. Second round, you, sir. Bulky lookalike, you, sir, are on the clock.
I like George Pickens. If he falls, I am running. I'm running that up there, buddy. I think that guy is the guy of all the wide receivers. I like Jameson Williams too, but obviously we're not going to get a shot at that guy because Williams appears to me to be the more lightning quick guy than Pickens. Pickens reminds me a little bit more of your Michael Thomas.
Now, have you saw any highlights of Pickens?
Yeah.
Okay. And it doesn't bother you that he's a body catcher?
No, because here's why. It would bother me if he wasn't the best catcher, because he's the best catcher. Like if you look at he doesn't drop the passes. He's the best out of all of them. So if you say, well,
because that bothers me. I want your hands out. I want you getting the ball.
Well, I heard Michael Irvin say this one time.
Hi, Tina.
Yeah. I heard Michael Irvin say this one time. He said, depending upon how the ball arrives and where I am and what route depends on whether I'm using my hands or whether I'm using my body. And
okay.
And that makes
some sense. Okay.
I can go with that. Like I get the hands thing because it gives you the opportunity to keep it away. It gives you the opportunity to double, in case something happens, you can still get it. I get the whole process. I understand it. But when somebody's good at that, I don't stop them from being good at that. If they do it perfectly, and if you look at the stat, he's the best at catching. So I've got no issues with that.
If we do draft him, just catch the damn ball. Just catch the ball, because we have a bunch of people who can't catch the ball.
Right.
Anyway, remember I was rewatching the Miami game, and I was on Discord, telling it.
Yeah.
Okay. It was 3 bad passes, right? 3 questionable. I wouldn't even call them bad passes. They were passes. 4 drops.
Yeah.
4 drops. And
that's ridiculous what happened to it last year. And and this is the thing too. This is my point about trying to. Can we possibly get Higgins from Cincinnati? I'd like to get that guy if I could, but of the ones available here, I watched the receivers. I get Christian Watson. I get it. But here's something about Christian Watson to bring him back up. This is very similar to Trayvon, and you brought him up with Trayvon Walker.
Mm-hmm.
Here's something to consider. Okay, so he did have a good year last year. Unlike Walker, who
was middle of the road.
Yeah, he was just a guy there. Christian Watson was very dynamic last year. He looks like his athletic profile, or he played like his athletic profile. Where was he when Trey Lance was the quarterback? He did nothing when Trey Lance was the quarterback. That scares the mess out of me. Like, how do you have a guy who in college, this should be great. Just freaking throw it, man. He's super fast. He's tall. and you had a guy who's a gunslinging bomb thrower, and they never hooked up. That doesn't like what was going on with Watson where that connection was never being made. That's not a huge program there. How many options do they have there? I don't even know where I don't even know what school. I forget which school they want go to.
I think it's like North Dakota State. Maybe they're giving out free degrees or something.
It's like, how did you guys not hook up? So what was he doing 2 years ago? Like, I don't get that. I maybe there's a reasonable answer to this question, but that scares me on him, even at 33. I mean, I'd probably take a shot on him, but as an example, if there's Pickens and Watson, most of the league appears to go Watson. I'm going Pickens. And when I watch Pickens, he's not a blazing fast guy, but he's fast. He's smooth. When I watch receivers in college, if they're smooth in transition and in their routes, that translates to the league. I've seen it time and time again. Choppy guys sometimes can, if they're smart and good route runners, but the smooth guys, to me, they translate. If my eye sees that smoothness, and I see it with Pickens.
All right. So you, sir, have just drafted us Evan Neal and Pickens. You're happy with that?
Yeah, because I think that, it slights our defense, but we can come back and we can get some. Think about it this way. How many defensive ends do you find that come out of nowhere? You don't, in this whole draft conversation stuff, who gets talked up. Defensive ends come out of the third, fourth, fifth rounds. They do all the time. They guys you never heard of during the draft process. Somebody like Baltimore will draft some dude you never heard of, and they'll turn into something good.
No, and you definitely can find them, but you can also find tackles, you can find guards, you can find centers. So for me, I'm going Aiden Hutchinson. Sorry. And I'll take Pickens. I'm fine with Pickens. I'm a little concerned about the body catching, but I agree. I think he is very smooth in and out of his cuts. I think he's a good route runner. I think he has more than enough speed. Once you get below 4.4, if you're talking about 4.44, 4.4, 4.37, there isn't a whole lot of difference. If you can get behind a guy, he's not catching it. So I'm okay with that. And then at that point, I start looking for the best player available. I keep looking at offensive line. I keep looking at receivers. I keep looking at defense. Maybe we can get a corner, maybe we can get another safety in here, start to try to round out the team a little bit more. I know that there are receivers that you can have. Remember, I still love that dude from Utah. We can have him in the 6th, 7th round. What do we got? I think we got 3 6 rounders. The guy returns punts. Look at the receiver from Utah. I forgot what his name is, but.
And you just consider how many receivers you keep on a roster, man. You can't really draft a lot of receivers and not expect to have to get rid of some of them. Either that, or you're going to get rid of Zay Jones, who you just signed, or Treadwell. I mean, Treadwell's a candidate, but I mean, this sort of
personally, I keep Agnew over Treadwell.
Oh yeah. For sure, because we need speed.
Yeah,
Treadwell, he was in on those drops, man. I remember he dropped a touchdown. He dropped a big conversion that Trevor laid right his hands. I mean, I like Treadwell. I like how he seems
his
like
story,
he's
right?
Hard. He seems like he's a big bodied guy. Maybe he can turn it around a little bit here. But but the thing is that I guess what I'm saying is I want that one speed guy that for wide receiver. That's the clutch guy. And I think your point about the Utah guy is fair, because
now that dude's clutch. The only problem with him, the only problem is he's a slot guy.
Yeah.
He's 100% slot guy in the NFL. But for me personally, I'm okay with that for two reasons. He's a 6th round, 7th round undrafted free agent, and he returns punts.
Right.
Right. Okay. So you have Agnew on kickoffs. You have this guy on punt return. So now your special teams can break at any damn point. You have an extra slot guy just in case. The dude is good in and out of his routes. I just think he's undersized, and you know how the NFL gets.
Yeah.
Man, if you're not 6'4", they don't want to look at you. And it's like, well, look at the heart. Don't look at this, don't look at the what is it? Look at the size of the fight in the dog, not the size of the dog in the fight. So
and if Trevor's who we think he could be and who we think he is, and he's not encumbered by drops and the slowest wide receiving core and the most ridiculous front office and scheme in the world, which we don't have this year, then he should be comfortable. He should be accurate. And you don't have to have 6'4" guy. If you have an accurate passer in a competent scheme, you can have two slot guys out there. It's fine. If you need to, but like you said, that's a guy that's a jar on a shelf. So he would, it's a good point. I like that thought process.
Yeah. I mean, I think later on in the draft, if we don't give up some of these picks, which I guarantee you we're at least going to make one trade up. And the reason why is, if I'm not mistaken, we got to find $4 million someplace to sign 12 potential rookies. I don't think we're finding that 12 million. So I think we may cut that list down to about nine potential rookies. And then that may be the way we actually eat up that additional $4 million.
Well, we got 3 third rounds
so
yes, that's good.
We have 2 third rounders and three 6 rounders.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Yeah. So we need to try to move those or move them into next year or something like that.
Yeah. One of the two, either way, I'm okay with it. I'm happy coming out of here with 6-7 dudes, as long as these 6-7 dudes are going to be contributors. I'm okay with him going tackle first, receiver second, especially since Pickens is there in almost every mock draft I look at. So I would like that. However, we are the Jacksonville Jaguars. So Frank, please understand that you may be disappointed. Okay.
Hey, man. I am a Jaguar fan. I'm used to it, man.
Right. But I don't want you to get your hopes up.
We didn't fire Balky. I mean, it's kind of an expectation at this point.
And we're going to pass on him. Trent Balky's going to watch this and he's going to say, F you, Frank, watch this. And he's going to pick some dude from the Gators.
Yeah, no, that's an FU to you.
Yeah. Hey, that's the both of us.
Yeah, but
he's passing on your guy and he's hitting a school I've refused to draft from.
I still think intellectually it makes sense not to do that to a whole school, but we've seen it so often. I mean, now is it the curse of Fred Taylor? I don't really understand it, man.
I have no problem drafting from that school in like the 4th round or the 5th round, or when you're not expecting a lot from them. But the more you expect from them, at least being a Jaguar, outside of Fred Taylor, the more we've expected from this school, the more they've let us down.
I can think of 2 other Gators. I'm sure there's more, but
Reggie Nelson, Dante Fowler.
No, I was thinking good ones.
Travian Bryant. Oh, I'm thinking bad ones. Like I got the 5.
I can give you some. I'm with you. I can give you the bad ones for sure. Now I was trying to think who could. There can't be all bad. So the only ones I was thinking was Bobby McCray. You remember him?
Yeah, but he was a 7th rounder, so that goes to my point.
It popped in my head when you said later round drafts.
Yeah,
and then Mike Peterson, which we didn't draft him.
Yeah, he was a Colt.
But yeah, I can't. There's got to be other people. I feel like there was an offensive lineman we had that was okay.
He got hurt. I know who you're talking about. He got hurt. Yeah,
he left tackle for a little bit, I think.
Yeah, but he got hurt and never really.
But he wasn't really that great, anyways. He was just okay. So.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is our take on the draft. So my brother is going with Evan Neal and Pickens. I'm going with Aiden Hutchinson and Pickens.
So we got the same guy at 33. So let's see how
Which
that
is
works out.
why we know Trent Baalke will not draft him.
Yeah, definitely won't have Pickens. Dang it.
Won't get Pickens.
Yeah.
So,
Oh well.
yeah, I mean, there are other good players there. So if you're not going to listen to us, at least go and get a good quality starting player. I'd be happy with that. But I like Pickens. I think he can develop into a number one, and I think that's what we need desperately. You know,
It'll be nice to hear them.
I think this year would be a hell of a year to bring in a potential number one receiver because you get Marvin Jones on a last year, first year with Kirk. You know, you get the old veteran tutelage, you know, for 1 year before Marvin Jones, you know, goes off. And then we turn it loose and we're like, all right, you know, we doubled I'm hoping we doubled our wins from last year. So now we're winning 6-7 games. Now let's let them loose, you know?
Yeah.
So
We
at
need
least
to get
that's what I
Trevor
hope.
some weapons.
And I think ETN will help. I think a lot of people are too high on that though. So
I
he may
haven't
be
thought about it much at all.
Yeah, I mean, there's some out there. And again, we got 2 third-round picks.
In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if they went running back at some point later on.
I think at some point they have to.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I would. I would be seriously looking at the 4th, 5th round and just seeing, can I
that's
get
another
somebody?
Position where you can find guys.
Yes.
That's where you get running backs.
Yep.
Unlike where we went last year.
Well,
so hopefully he will turn into something. Yeah.
Yep. Well, anyway, if you disagree or if you have somebody better, please put it down in the comments. Hit the subscribe, hit the like if you guys like the video and want to subscribe to the channel when we do put out content. So I will say thank you. So on behalf of the Brothers Grimm and the Jaggernaut podcast, we are out for this evening. Go Jags.
Go Jags.